All right. The kind of poster on the wall there says gakuya. In Japanese, gakuya means backstage, or the place where performers uh, rest or prepare for a performance.
So tell me about your experience and your exposure to music as you went into your teenage years, and how how what you heard influenced you to pick up and start learning to play the guitar and some other string instruments, and what you did with the music that you learned, and the groups that you played in throughout the 60s.
Well, um, my mother bought an electric guitar and a little amplifier for me when I was 12. It was Christmas. It was Christmas. And I started playing that. And very early on, I found it was tough because the steel strings were rough on your fingers if you didn't have calluses. And so there was a boy in the neighborhood my age, and I don't know. I found he said he had a guitar that he didn't want or something or other, and it was an old Gibson of some kind, and he said, what do you have? And I said, well, I can't remember how this worked out. I traded him a bicycle for it, and then put nylon strings on it, and that was the instrument that I really learned to play guitar on because nylon strings were easier on your fingers. I think there are probably a lot of kids who started out with electrics that eventually laid them aside because it just was too tough on your fingers. But anyway, so that little, it was 3/4 size, it was a small Gibson, I think it was a Gibson, and with nylon strings, and that I played that into maybe my second year of high school. Yeah, I don't know. The first band, like rock format band, was maybe in the my third year of junior high school. There was another boy who had played electric guitar for a while, and I don't know. I managed to elbow my way into his group. And there was another guy from the school band who played percussion, and that was the beginning of kind of band experience. And then we continued to play into high school, and we found a bass player. So I played guitar, and the other guy played guitar, and we had a bassist and a drummer, and we played several times at what they called a teen center. It was a place for adolescents to go on Friday or Saturday night and dance around to a live band. But along the way, I played this nylon string guitar, and then I wanted an acoustic guitar, which took me a while to figure out the necessary money to buy one, but I did, and that was like, say, in 1969, 69 and 70, and I kind of was more interested in the softer sound of some of the people who were prominent in those days. And I went to a few live shows in nightclubs that gave a much more intimate experience than a large format concert format, and that impacted my playing and my kind of musical values, I suppose.
So was there anything else you wanted to say about James Taylor or any of the other stuff that happened to you, like in the 70s with music?
Well, I think James Taylor was a terrific guitar teacher. I learned to play I learned to play pretty much the way he was playing and what he was doing, how he was finger picking, and that was fun for me because then I played for people, for friends that I knew, and they were like, oh, that was pretty good. The reaction to being able to do that was like, it was a good trick. Um, and then, goodness, from what happened musically from, say, 1970 to 75, there's a whole lot of stuff there. Um, that was, I turned 18 in 1970 and turned 23 in 1975. So those were kind of my formative early 20s period. I didn't play that much in that period of time. I played, just myself for my own pleasure and amusement, but I wasn't playing in a band and performing for audiences at that time. So, it was a time where I was doing music, but not doing it with other people really.
So tell us about how your music experience continued into the late 1970s, including maybe a bit about when you were working at the Owl Tavern, helping out a musician friend and maybe playing bass in the house band. Anything else that was going on in the late 70s or early 80s with your music?
All right. In 1979, 78, 79, I was living in the Ballard area of Seattle, and one day I read in the newspaper about a tavern that was reopening, and it happened to be close by to where I lived. And so I got curious, and the announcement indicated that there was going to be live music there. And so I wandered down there one day and went in, and I asked the whoever I talked to that day, and I think it was probably the woman who was going to operate the place, who also was a musician and a singer. I think her name was Tosca. Um, I asked her, kind of in a kind of back kind of backwards way. I said, kind of the way I phrased it. I said, well, you're getting ready to open here, so I assume you've got your staff all lined up and ready to go. And she says, well, as a matter of fact, we're looking for a second bartender. And she said, would you be interested? And I said, well, yeah, I'll take a look at that. And I was curious about that, and it seemed like an interesting opportunity. And so I did. And they had open mics there, and I went down. I took my guitar down and played at an open mic or two. Um, and then she asked me if I would sit in with her band, and like she didn't have a bass player. And so I said sure. She had a bass, and I knew some of the songs that she was doing. One of them was Margaritaville, the Jimmy Buffett tune, and she liked what I did with that. And there were some other tunes I did. And she liked the bass work, and so I played with her little group a few times and played, open mic. It was very low key. It really wasn't that substantial of a period in terms of performing. It was something. It was okay.
Okay, so you mentioned how in the early to mid 1980s, Japan was getting a lot of attention for its economic miracle, and in the Seattle area in particular, and it got your attention. So, kind of maybe tell us about how you started to learn about that, and then what were the chance happenings or opportunities that led you to finally decide to go to Japan in 1990.
Let's see. In the mid 1980s, the Japanese economy was very strong, and both of the daily newspapers in Seattle started. Maybe it was only one of them. I think it was both. Started a special section in the business section of the newspaper that was devoted to the economies of the Pacific Rim. And that at that time that was a new concept, and people never talked about something about the economies of the Pacific Rim, and that meant the economies of Western America, Canada, Mexico, all the way down into South America, and then around on the Asian side to Japan, Korea, Taiwan, the Philippines, Southeast Asian countries, and that idea that the Pacific Rim was well. I think at that point in time there was a period of time around that time where the volume of trade across the Pacific exceeded the amount of trade across the Atlantic, and in business terms and economic terms that was rather big news, I thought, and so I, kind of was at that time, gazing across the Pacific Ocean, thinking about, well, what's going on over there, and the Japanese were buying, plum real estate in the U.S. and elsewhere, and I, in my lifetime, I had seen how Japanese made products had evolved and improved and improved and improved, particularly cars and motorcycles and electronics, a lot of stuff. And so it was noticeable. You saw it. You could see the growth of Toyota and Honda and Suzuki and the Japanese manufacturers and all of the Japanese big companies.
So you mentioned how you saw what was going on in the news and in the economy in Japan, but what were the experiences or opportunities that suddenly or gradually presented themselves to you personally that then led to you to make the decision and take that opportunity to move to Japan?
All right, I'd say there were two things.
Can you repeat what I said?
Well, okay. The two things that happened, or two experiences I had, which got me motivated toward trying to explore what was in Japan and to explore employment opportunities. There was a Japanese woman who was living in the same apartment building that I was in, and I got acquainted with her. And she was a student. She was over in Seattle studying, and she was very friendly. And I remember one night she invited some other students from Japan over, and we had a little sushi party, and it was very agreeable. And I asked a few questions, and they were gracious in answering, and encouraged me to, if you're interested in Japan, yeah, go take a look, pretty much. Then the other thing that was instrumental in getting me to really think seriously about it was a friend of a friend, a sister of a friend, had gone to Beppu, which is a town in Kyushu in the southern island of Japan, and she'd gone over as an English teacher. And that interested me because I studied English, and I wrote to her and asked her some questions, and like, tell me about your life over there. You like it? How's it go? And she said she spoke favorably about what she'd seen and done, and she said she thought the food was brilliant, and because she was the friend of a trusted friend, I thought she was believable, and that was probably also instrumental in me real actively pursuing whatever opportunities I might find in Japan.
So in this last segment here, tell me about the specific.
Are you okay? The red light came on over here.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, tell me about the specific opportunity that presented itself, or how you went and sought out that specific opportunity to move to Japan and work, and then how that last little bit of the transition went down.
Okay, good.
And repeat that in your own words.
All right. Well, what was the thing that motivated me to initiate communication that led to me coming over here? The friend of the sister of a friend that I wrote to, who was living in Kyushu. When in one of the letters that she sent to me, she included a business card of another person who was working for a company that was headquartered in Tokyo, and I contacted that company and told them I was interested in employment, and they sent me a package of material and like essentially a job application, and I filled it out and sent it back, and they wrote me back and said, yeah, we'd like you to come over. And they sent me two employment contracts, and I didn't know which one I should sign. And so I contacted one of their representative in the States and said, which one should I sign? And the guy just said, take your pick. So I picked the one that I picked, signed the contract, and it was a 1-year contract to come over here and teach business English. And the transition was, all in all, I mean, was very doable. You had to have some money up front. We couldn't get over here with empty pockets. You had to have, I think at that time, I think they said you needed $3,000 to get set up in an apartment and whatnot. But I had $3,000 at that point, and so that was it. I was able to make the move. And in a lot of ways, when I look back on that now, even though I was 30, let's see, I was 37, 38 years old at that point, I feel like that was my first job. Was the first job that required the qualification that I had at that point, which means a college degree.